Hello, I'm Amy Shulke of VanillaArts.com, and this is Backyard Birds. The Backyard Birds project was originally developed for my local Copic Club classes in Macomb, Michigan. Today's video is not a class. It's a speed demonstration of how I colored the stamp. The full project took me about 5 hours to color, and I spaced that out over 3 days. The Backyard Birds class that I taught locally, that was a 3-hour class, and we only colored 3 of the birds. So no, this 15-minute speed coloring demonstration is definitely not a class. The stamp that I'm using today is Bird Tree by Stampendous. As I said, it took me about 5 hours to color this image. There's too much footage to show you every single detail, or to keep track of the colors that I'm using in the captions as I normally do. So you can get a full list of supplies in the video description, and I have a blog post that goes along with this video. And before we get to the bird talk, please be sure to like this video and hit the subscribe button. Your likes are a vote of support that tell me to keep making more video demonstrations. I'm starting with the cardinal at the top of the tree here, and you'll notice that for most of these birds, I'm only using 1 or 2 Copics. I'm shaping the birds with my markers, but I will add the feathery details with fine point pens and sharp colored pencils later. There are 3 main areas on each bird that I want to make sure are well sculpted and dimensional. Every bird has a deep eye and a lighter, brighter cheek. That gives the face some shape instead of looking flat-headed. Every bird also has a neck. You don't want that bird to look like an egg. If you don't deepen the neck, it won't look like he has a neck. And the last thing is to separate the body from the wing and the tail. So those armpits and the area underneath the tail, they all need to go darker in color to visually push them farther away from your viewers. Don't fall into the trap of trying to show every single feather on a bird. Feathers come in all shapes and sizes. Unless you're looking at a really big bird and you're looking at them really close up, you're not going to see the feathers on the bird's chest. The body is usually more fuzzy looking than feathery. The next bird here is a Cedar Wax Wing. It was a bit of a challenge to color each of these birds a different species, because I think all 3 of the left side birds here, they were intended to be cardinals. But I'm always trying to balance color throughout my projects, and putting 3 bright red birds all on the left side of the tree, well, that would have made the image very red heavy on the left. Red attracts a lot of attention, and so I like to sprinkle my reds across the whole entire image. You have to balance color, or the project is going to feel lopsided. So I was stuck trying to find other species of birds that have a top crest like a cardinal, but without being red. And I also balanced that cardinal with the red berries on the tree. If I had colored the berries blue or pink or any other color, that cardinal would still draw way too much attention. I'm using different markers and different pencils on the Cedar Wax Wing, but it's the same coloring process that I used on the cardinal. His black mask got in the way of deepening the eye and puffing up the cheek, but I still darkened the neck, and I still separated the wing and tail from the body. And the large feather shape details are saved for the wing and the tail, with the body looking fuzzy rather than feathered. It's the same process, just a different marker list. I'll repeat this same technique on the Chickadee now, sculpting the face, the neck, and the body with Copics, and then using pens and pencils to bring out the feathery details. My supply list changes based on how the color of the bird changes from species to species, and to select these colors, I looked at photo references of actual birds. If I tried to color a cardinal from memory, I might not remember the bits of black that cardinals have on their wings. I see cardinals every day in my backyard, but I did not remember the black on their tail until I looked at the photo. You may remember what a chickadee looks like, but do you remember it well enough to color it accurately? I sure didn't. I used a photo reference as a guide for what colors to use and where that color should go. Chickadees have black on their head, but my memory isn't good enough to remember how much of the head is actually black. Leaving the cheek white and keeping the gray on just the wings and the back will help people identify that this is a chickadee and not some random gray bird. What makes a goldfinch look different than a canary? Unless you look at a photo reference, you won't remember. It's a myth that to be a good artist, you have to draw or color completely from memory or from your imagination. The human brain is not like a computer. We don't store whole memories. We only retain selected bits and pieces of what we see, and we forget things all the time. Whole chunks of memory are like washed away within minutes as soon as your mind moves on to the next thought. And when we're called upon to remember something, especially when it's something you've only seen once or twice and you didn't really pay attention to it, well, it's no wonder that you can't remember the difference between a goldfinch and a canary. Smart artists and colorers, they double check everything, either with a photo reference or they go and look at a real bird. I don't have a goldfinch in my pocket to look at, so I'm using a photo reference to make my little bird as accurate as possible. There's no shame in working from photo references. It's the smart thing to do. And by the way, the bird coloring process that I started with the cardinal, shape the face and cheek, shade the neck, tuck the body underneath the wings and the tail underneath the body, I'm still doing the same thing here. I'm just using goldfinch colors instead of the cardinal recipe. Next up is a house finch. I was trying to select birds that I see in my own backyard, but at the same time, I'm still trying to balance out the red of that cardinal. This is a house finch, and while he might not be a brilliant scarlet color, his warm pink head and the chest, they're perfect to sit opposite of the cardinal, and I love the stripes on their tummy. Base coating the bird with Copics. Push the eye deep and keep the cheek pale so that it looks plump. Narrow the neck with shade. Darken the armpit, darken the underbelly by the tail, add large feathers to the wing and tail, add downy fuzz feathers to the chest and stomach. I'm still using that same cardinal procedure and it's still working. I'm getting dimensional birds that feel somewhat realistic, but very cute. There is one secret to cuteness though that isn't always obvious. I enlarge the eyes. Not by much, but they are larger than what was provided on the original stamp. Eyes are actually one of the main drawbacks to enlarging stamps to full-page sizes. On a small stamp, the stamp artist cannot draw a lot of detail. At that size, eyes are usually a scribble at most. But enlarge that stamp and the squiggle, it just starts to look weird. So I tend to redraw the eyes the way that I prefer them. Bigger and very round with a bit of eyelid at the top. And I add a very large pupil to all my eyes. The quickest way to turn your bird into a serial killer is to give him beady little pinpoint pupils. Big eyes with big round pupils, they read as friendly, almost baby-like. It's the cute factor that you may not have considered before. And it doesn't just work on birds. I use this eye method on most of my animals. Even when I'm shooting for maximum realism, I still cheat a little and I enlarge the eyes just a bit. And hey, did you notice? I'm still trying to balance out the red from that cardinal. The house finch, he's got a red head and he's sitting on the bottom right-hand corner of the tree. And now I've got a woodpecker in the bottom left corner and he has a red head too. There's a method to my madness here. I've pre-planned the birds to balance each other out. The red isn't just concentrated in one corner, it's spread all the way around the image. I've balanced out the browns. There's a brown bird on the top left and one on the bottom right. And I'm about to add a blue jay to the left side. That's why my Chickadee over on the right has very strong hints of blue slate in his gray jacket. I'm balancing out the blue. And my lone yellow Goldfinch, he's smack dab in the center so that he's just as balanced as the other colors. The image feels complete and balanced because I've taken the extra time to think through my color palette and to spread that color evenly across the whole entire image. If I had just started coloring any old bird with any old marker, well, if you want your projects to have that polished and professional feel, you have to plan things out the way polished professionals do. Psst! I'm still using the cardinal feather technique too. It's a blue jay, but he's got all the same body parts as the cardinal. Now, of all the birds here, the finished blue jay bothers me the most, but that's because I'm really familiar with the blue jays in my own backyard. They're big birds and they're kind of muscular, but the bird in the stamp here is short and squat. So he's my least favorite of the bunch, but that's because I'm a stickler for details. But I just wanted to point it out to you. It's painful for me to watch myself color this blue jay. I'm not in love with everything I do. I see flaws in everything I do, and my mistakes bug me just as much as your mistakes bug you. No matter how good you get at coloring, no matter how many awards you win, no matter how many angels sing songs about how awesome you are, you're never going to get to the point where you love everything that you do. That's normal. I know a lot of beginners, they dream of a time when they can color things perfectly the first time, when they don't have to struggle just to make something look halfway decent. But here's the thing I wish I'd known 20 years ago. That feeling of inadequacy, it never really goes away. Now, I'm not saying that you'll never get better. In fact, it's the exact opposite. The more you practice coloring, the better you get. You're going to grow. But as your skills grow, your taste is going to grow too. The better you get, the higher your standards are going to get. You can do more, so you'll expect more. And that's a good thing, because that unattainable quest for excellence is what keeps artists coming back day in and day out. There's always something new to learn and some new thing to improve. The fact that your goalpost keeps moving is a good thing because it keeps you interested and excited about coloring. I draw and color every day, and I've done so for a long time. It's still entertaining, it's still fun, and it will be for you too, even if some of the blue jays look weird.